Ladies and gentlemen, this is DVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Dmitry Peskov, a professional liar with years of experience, which is basically a job requirement if you're applying to be a Kremlin spokesperson, has once again entered the chat. Now this time he recycled an old favorite. The Kyiv regime shows absolutely no desire to do anything in the direction of peace agreements. And yeah, the term Kyiv regime already sets off all the red flags. But of course, he didn't stop there.
Тема томагавков вызывает у нас крайнюю обеспокоенность, об этом уже говорил президент Путин. Оружие это особенное, оно может быть в безъядерном, может быть в ядерном исполнении. Высокая дальность, оружие серьезное, но при этом оно не может изменить положение дел на фронтах. Но сейчас действительно очень драматичный момент с точки зрения того, что со всех сторон нагнетается напряженность. Российская сторона продолжает говорить о том, что мы готовы к мирному урегулированию, и мы также слышим, что Трамп все-таки все время говорит о необходимости садиться за стол переговоров. И из этого мы делаем вывод, что он сохраняет все-таки политическую волю. Но европейцы, киевский режим демонстрируют абсолютно нежелание что-то делать в этом русле.
Listening to Peskov is like stepping into a parallel universe where peace talks are held with tanks and compromise means handing over your sovereignty. According to this logic, Ukraine's refusal to surrender is what's really prolonging the war. Classic abuser logic. Look what you made me do. Meanwhile, at the Kremlin, peace doesn't mean stopping the war. It means you accept their terms, their troops, their flag, and maybe, just maybe, they'll stop bombing your power plants. Every time Peskov says we're ready for a peaceful settlement, it just mentally replace it with we like to keep what we've stolen, thanks. Now, it's the classic Kremlin bundle. Sign here, and you'll receive occupation, annexation, and a free commemorative coin. But what makes the performance even more grotesque is that these peace gestures are always paired with missile strikes on civilian infrastructure. Hospitals, power grids, apartment blocks, all lit up while Peskov speaks softly into a microphone about diplomacy. Whether it's strategic psychosis or just good old-fashioned hypocrisy, the Kremlin seems to think that it can bomb its way to a Nobel Peace Prize. And let's be honest, these peace overtures never last long anyways. Sooner or later, another Solovyov or Medvedev rolls into the screen, casually threatening nuclear war again. The act might play well on Russian TV, but it doesn't really fly elsewhere. Certainly not with Ukrainians, and definitely not with the democracies that still remember what real peace is supposed to look like. Viktor Orban, a man who believes he can be both in the European Union and in the Kremlin fan club at the same time, has once again stepped into the spotlight. This time by dramatically declaring that, quote, Ukrainians want to join the EU at any cost, and that Brussels is apparently conspiring with Kyiv. Yes, Brussels, a political institution infamous for moving slower than a glacier, is now part of a covert geopolitical thriller in Orban's imagination.
Az ukránok nem viccelődnek, megmondják egyenesen, bármiáron be akarnak kerülni az Európai Unióba. Magyarország ezt nem akarja. Az ukránok megmondják egyértelműen, nekik pénzre van szükségük. Pénz kell a hadsereghez, nem tudják eltartani a saját államukat, nem tudják kifizetni a nyugdíjakat, a fizetéseket, ezért nekik pénz kell. Adjatok nekünk pénzt, megmondják egyenesen. Ennek is van egy akadálya, ezt Magyarországnak hívják. Ezért az ukránok a saját szájukkal meg is mondták, hogy az kell, hogy Magyarországon kormányváltás legyen. Brüsszel és Ukrajna össze.
So Orban is once again posing as the great defender of Hungarian money. Now that same money the EU keeps freezing over chronic corruption and rule of law violations in his own government. Let's be clear, he's not blocking aid to Ukraine out of fiscal conservatism. Brussels just doesn't want its cash to disappear between football stadiums and empty villages and shady Budapest contracts. And while Orban lectures Ukraine about being unable to support its own state, it's like a man living off his parents' credit card mocking someone working 3 jobs to pay rent. But now Orban claims Brussels is forcing a change of government in Hungary. Honestly, if that were true, we'd kindly ask them to pick up the pace, because when an EU member accuses the EU of conspiracy, it defends Russian war narratives and blocks support to a country fighting for its survival, it's not independent thinking. It's just Putinism in a smaller suit. Ukraine wants into the EU at any cost, and that causes blood sacrifice and a moral choice. Orban, meanwhile, wants gas discounts, tea in Moscow, and a seat at the dictator table. Just not too close to the sanction list. Russian propaganda has introduced a new genre: missile humanitarian realism. According to Kremlin TV, when Russian forces strike Ukraine's power grid with missiles, they're not attacking, they're saving lives. Yeah, you heard that right. In the twisted language of Moscow, frostbite is affection, blackouts are compassion, and knocking out life support system is an act of Slavic brotherhood. One is seriously tempted to ask, could you not save us then?
Россия приступила к масштабным ударам по энергосистеме Украины. Цель и задача – заставить Зеленского осознать существующие реалии и скорее приблизить мир. В этом плане, конечно же, российские ракетные удары, а также удары дронами по ключевым объектам, от которых зависит устойчивость системы военного и государственного управления Украины. Эти удары носят гуманитарный характер, потому что чем быстрее наступит мир, тем больше сбережем мы жизни простых граждан Украины. В противном случае их будут отправлять в топку войны.
Behind every one of these so-called humane missiles are hospitals shutting down mid-surgery, children doing homework by candlelight, and elderly people trying to survive without heat in a sub-zero temperature. This isn't charity at all. It's state-sponsored terror, gift-wrapped in a lie and labeled peacemaker. Russian officials can put a bow on it, but it's still a missile. So Russia has now officially invented a new type of weapon, the goodwill missile. It explodes, sure, but only with the purest intentions. Following that logic, the next line from the Kremlin will be, we didn't invade Ukraine, we just humanely expanded the borders of love. Because in Russia, everything is special, including humanitarian strikes, which when translated correctly, is simply just mean a blow to humanity. All right, time for another tearjerker from Moscow's human tragedy. A woman recording herself crying like her soul had been turned off, all because her GPS wasn't working. Yes, this is what counts as a breakdown in Russia these days. Not war, not missiles, just being unable to find a mall without Siri. Now the irony? Well, her own government is actually the one jamming GPS signals. You see, a Russian electronic warfare system, the same one used to interfere with Ukraine drone strikes, are now scrambling civilian navigation across Russia. From Kaliningrad to Vladivostok, GPS apps are sending drivers into forests, airfields, or straight into the abyss. And yet, this woman, like many others, is somehow shocked that wartime tech doesn't come with an accept me setting.
Короче, снимают видео такие, типа, я не знаю, как ехать, поэтому я доеду до Твери, Мне сегодня была встреча, я вся нарядилась, я не могу доехать, потому что этот навигатор не работает в центре. И что вы думаете, я просто час ездила вокруг Кремля, я не могла повернуть, куда мне надо. И я реально, я не могу просто в обратную сторону поехать, не могу, вот, чтобы вы понимали, я херачу, к МКАДу, чтобы развернуть. Мне надо, короче, вот туда, а я не могу туда поехать, потому что я не понимаю, где тут разворот. Я понимаю головой, что, наверное, надо уйти куда-то влево или вправо, потому что, явного, естественно, разворота на Тверской его просто нету. Но я кружусь и в итоге заблуждаюсь. Я просто час ездила, чтобы вы понимали, я не утрирую. И сейчас вот я еду в сторону МКАДа. Просто хуярю на МКАД, потому что мне нужно в центр Москвы, но я еду на МКАД, потому что я не знаю, где разворот. Я, походу, только в Химках развернусь, потому что я в Химках могу без навигатора лететь. Вот что мне так обидно. Просто обидно, не могу.
Her video went viral not because it was tragic, but because it was absurd. A mix of hysteria, privilege, and complete disconnect. While Russian bombs fall on Ukrainian cities, some Muscovites are losing their minds because Yandex Maps took the wrong turn. Is dark satire in real time? A nation waging war in the 21st century, now whining that it can't find its way to Starbucks. In the end, this isn't just about GPS. It's a perfect metaphor for modern Russia. A country at war with progress, where the people have learned to live without truth, without freedom, without shame, and now without Google Maps. The Kremlin claims nothing can knock us off course. And, well, maybe that's true. You can't go off course when you've been parked in the same historical dead end for decades. And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.